Harry Potter is a worldwide phenomenon. The books have inspired movies, theme parks, even Quidditch at some colleges. And the author, J.K. Rowling, was the first billion-dollar author, selling over 400 million copies and publishing in 55 different languages. And the books are a first-hand account of Rowling's imagination. Expansive world, tons of characters, and the movies brought that world to life. They're, the books and the movies are two tellings of the same story, but the mediums make them different. Given the freedom and limitless opportunity of books, it's just a better way to tell this vast of a story. So let's start with the plot. Harry's story is full of meaningful moments, but the most enduring and important part is his journey from being an abused orphan living under the stairs of his aunt and uncle's home and becoming the greatest wizard of all time. And the books and movies handle this differently. The movie focuses on the main plot, which is sort of the mystery side of the story, while the book immerses you in the world and Hogwarts and Harry's classes. And being that ingrained into the world makes the mystery more convincing, and it better establishes Harry as a character, and you can see his growth. The Wizarding World is just too fast to capture in a movie, and it forces some of the subplots to be left out or skimmed over. And my personal biggest miss of the movie was Percy Weasley's story, which is he's one of Ron's many siblings. He starts out, he gets shunned from his family because he shuns his family and joins the Ministry and slanders Dumbledore and Harry, and they completely lose face with one another. But he returns in the Battle of Hogwarts, and it's a really endearing moment. Um, and having Percy's story in the books made the Ministry's evil all the more personal. They created tension within the good guys of the story and had a heartwarming conclusion that just boosted the finale overall. The movies did left that out and was worse for it. The movies do add good scenes though when they fill in the holes left from certain subplots, like in Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, which is inspired by the final book of the series. They cut out a lot of Dumbledore's backstory, which is important in the book, but they replace it with scenes oriented toward the main cast, Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And my favorite scene from that movie is the dancing scene in the tent with Harry and Hermione, because it comes at a dark time and Ron has left them and they can't find any Horcruxes, and it just kind of gives the audience hope that they will. Um, though lack of supporting details lessens the movie's overall potential, they make the key moments shine when they happen. And let's talk about characters. With a massive 7-book series like Harry Potter, there's bound to be tons of characters. Um, but the movies are forced to limit the amount of characters that are in the story because they have to focus on the main group so that they can drive the main plot. Uh, this forces some characters out, forces the reshaping of some characters, and it changes the story in subtle ways. In the books, supporting characters are pivotal. They drive the plot most of the time, but the movies usually water them down to comic relief, dull, minor plot devices, or nothing at all. Neville Longbottom's probably the worst off because he's a deep character with a lot of growth in the books, but in the movies they usually just use him as comic relief. In his defining moment in the final book, he just, instead of facing Voldemort and showing how courageous he is, he kind of just stumbles upon the sword and takes out Nagani, which is Voldemort's snake and final Horcrux. And it's just not as impactful in the movie as it is in the book. Um, but though certain characters lack depth and purpose, they are well acted and entertaining in the movies, especially Alan Rickman, who plays Severus Snape. He changed the character, but he is more menacing. The movie also does really well with the appearances of the characters. Like when you think of Harry Potter, you think Daniel Radcliffe. When you see Emma Watson, you think she's the perfect Hermione. They were all cast really well, but the acting and characters' appearance do not help. It helps the movies keep up, but it doesn't. It just can't drive it past the books. Um, and the movies and books are just they're told in different ways. Movies are meant to provoke the most sensitive senses like sight and sound. They bring the magical world to life, Hogwarts, and it's just nice to see a concrete picture of all the things you imagine. But it's a lazy viewpoint for a story such like Harry Potter, where it is rooted in the imaginative world that J.K. Rowling created. Her writing style fits perfectly with that. It She gives information and tells you about the world and the creatures and the characters, but she leaves room for you to expand and fill up the empty space. And movies are limited to the creator's viewpoint, showing what they want the audience to see. But books do the opposite. Creation is done by the reader, and it's a unique experience. The author shapes the world, character, story, but based on your point of view, you you have a unique perception of how the story is played. And a creative story like Harry Potter is just better experienced through imagination rather than visualization. And just like Voldemort lost because he was blind to the power of love and sought the power of death, the movies lost sight of what made Harry Potter great in the first place. They focused on what Harry went through, but it was never about what he went through necessarily, but how he overcame it that made the story so great. It is about those who helped him and guided him, and it was him learning love that he never had through parents that gave him that strength. The movies may have shown you Harry's journey, but the books took you alongside him. We watched the movies as muggles, but lived in the books as wizards.